My hope is not my HOPI connections that I have experienced going to the second Mesa, watching them do their rain dance. The Hopi myth is not my hope. Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Fair and honest, RJ. How are you doing this morning? What do you got going?
Well, I was wondering, if that's not your hope, but is the hokey pokey your dance? Is more my
I've
question.
been known to put my left foot in. I've been known to take my left foot out.
Yeah.
I've turned it all about. Yeah, man. So anyway, I got no. I just want to show a disclaimer because I'm going to be looking at some video of a Hopi guy planting water. Is that the disclaimer we disclaimed?
Yeah, you might need a fine tooth comb to yeah get through it.
Son of Light kills the monster. RJ Man Eagle, a frightful monster, had laid waste to the whole country with his sharp talons. He seized the women's girls, wives, and maidens. He flew off with them to his home above the clouds, where he abused them for 4 nights before eating them up. Oh, Man Eagle abducted the young wife of Son of Light. Within hours, he was on the trail. He knew he only had a few days. He had to go get him. He ran in the. He Hey, Pinion Maidens, what's up? They're dressed in grass and pinion bark. With them were Spider Woman and Mole. And so, RJ,
Yeah,
here I, you remember, here I am in Second Mesa with these Hopi, surrounded by these friends that Noah Church had arranged for me to meet, spread my message to them and the Hopi on the second Mesa before their rain dance. They didn't like it at all because I wasn't, they expected me to, I don't know, go along, get along or something. But I was saying, look, this isn't your land. You weren't born out of the mud here before any other people. And as a matter of fact, in about 10, 15 years, a bunch of white people and black people are going to be coming here because this is Shiloh. This is God's land. Your myths are myths. It is Jesus Christ. And Noah is offended, It's like, hey, man, you can't. The Hopi are trying hard and they've got their own redhead giant myths that we should pay attention to. No, we shouldn't. It's a
like
joke.
the red heifer. Okay.
It's like, we know now that these guys came back to Egypt, that the United States they kidnapped Jeremiah. They were Hebrews, different kinds of Native Americans, worshiping the Queen of Heaven, intermarrying with the people of Egypt when they got judged. And nobody wants to hear that because, no, they got sharp talons of the man wolf kidnapping the son of light's maiden.
So, what species is the thunderbird? The legend of the huh? Is that
He's a
just
male.
another eagle, or is it something else?
I don't know. Let's find out. We got Son of Light. Now just pick one here. What do you want? The magic of the hummingbird, mythology, crow and hawk. How about Jug Boy?
Well, I mean, as far as expanding the imagination, and what you find and see in God's creation, I don't think there's any. Yeah, you can't compete with the imagination of the Creator. Um, the only thing you can tinker around with is the animated, nonsense.
How
You
cunningly
can,
devised are these myths and fables that we're warned to be watch out for. They're cunningly, you know, they're yeah, unless you're
maybe against
watching
the
out,
truth.
you're going to be sucked right into it. RJ, these people believe that when the world was new, the ancient people and the ancient creatures did not live on the top of the earth. They lived under it. All was darkness, all was blackness above the earth as well as below it. And people go, oh, it's a creation myth. Cave worlds. None of the cave worlds was large enough for all those Hopis and the people and the creatures. So the Hopi come out. How can it be made better? Oh, let it be tried and seen, said another. Two brothers. This is boring me already. Hey,
Uh, I
Colorado.
mean, uh,
I've been here.
without light, yeah, you won't have life. And yeah, and they only come out at night. Well, you may have some moonlight then and some starlight, which is a different type of light versus the light that the sun produces during the day. Yeah, it's a complicated world uh,
Light
that we.
spectrums. We can't see them, but apparently we can see rainbows, so we get a good idea. There's a God in heaven. Is this about the corn?
New Mexico, Utah, and down in Mexico, because Hopi had a migration, and our story is that we came from the Grand Canyon. There's a place called Supapana. It's a very very spiritual place, and that's where Hopis emerged from. And the story goes that we as Hopis came through the bamboo, and we
Okay, and they were expecting me to take this serious. Like, okay,
wanted to find a somewhat better place. So, like anything, there is always one or two that'll sneak in and come with the crowd that are not always up to, not always willing to do good things, but to be resistors, I guess. But in life, I think we
and RJ, that is what's hard to drag out of them. That's their version of sin. They talk about the good, the bad, but they don't want to call it sin. There's always a few that just don't want to. What are they trying to say?
Well, I'm not certain. I can describe what's going on between my ears. Yeah, without a remnant, uh, you don't have any survivors, basically. Um, and if those survivors are unable to explain, not just amongst themselves, but to the next generation, to the next generation, without this storyline uh, being contaminated with, you know, other, uh, what do I want to call it? Uh, you know,
Cunningly devised myth.
well, being creative with the storytelling. It's not truth telling. Now it's storytelling time,
Right.
and yeah, and then trying to do the research, you know, backwards, from the story you're hearing today to the story that it originally came from, and yeah, and how many mouths
Let's think
spoke,
of it this
whatever.
way.
Because
Try to,
just like the Passover,
right. Well,
the
take a
story.
message, take a minute and keep the Passover in mind. After there's a remnant, stragglers that were left, like fugitives, is what it says, that all of a sudden they're left with their heads spinning. Here's their children. You either, you can tell them the truth and this and that, or RJ, you could have them not know and people could show up. it seems like around the world, not only with the Native Americans, where they supplied these stories, because you don't have time to think of the amount of detail that they've come up with. But if we put it in context to Satan is being loosed as what we know the Star Fort cities were, we see how they were dressed in their pictures and stuff. And then all of a sudden, these Freemasons, these Rosicrucians, have a chance with these stragglers and the machines and clothes to say, you dress like this in lederhosens. Eventually, you'll be called Germans, this whole Bavarian, Lithuanian. But for now, you have 3,000 kings and you dressed like lederhosen and you danced like this. And then to the Russians, they said, you guys wore these funny hats and you dressed like this. And when you danced, you kicked your feet out straight. And they said, we did? And they said, yeah. And then they went to these other guys and they said, you guys dressed like this. It's crazy. But then you would go, and everybody would think it was super cool. And then that's you guys. No kidding. That was us. Yeah. Oh, let's do it again.
Well, yeah, when it comes to being normalized, region to region, or, as far as to get that identity of, whether it's the race of people or, however they're being normalized, and then it gets more prevalent there in the end of the 19th century. And
Right.
I mean, it's all the way through history that those that are being normalized primarily with more nonsense than truth, and that's the whole story of history. And then you have the events that they claim happened when they claim it happened, right? And then you have resets.
Right. Yeah. Before World War I, it was the Victorian age, and we dressed in lederhosen or blew those big long Ricola, and everybody else was dressing in African masks, and
well, some, yeah.
They've got an answer for everything. So
but it was normal. Yeah, whatever they were doing was considered normal to them because that's how they learned it and where they learned it, and and what they did. That was a custom. You call them customs, and then the stories associated with those customs.
His job, this guy here, he's a Native American fisherman. He shows people how they used to catch the fish. They're all bringing back the ancient ways. You see, you can't feed the world. You feed a tribe. There's some stuff about that corn.
Soups. This is our blood in a lot of ways. This is who we are. When I was at Cornell University.
Netting fish isn't a new way of, you don't have to, on a hook.
Reinvent the wheel, right? But the idea that the corn blood or burning smoke at the right time of year draws the salmon up the stream. Okay, that's a Hopi myth. This guy is very happy. He gets a video about him. He doesn't drink anymore. He understands that that's bad. And his call should be to Jesus. Instead, it's to the lifeblood of the corn. I'm going to back it up 15 seconds.
These are just our blue corn varieties here, as we create about 42 different types of dishes from Hopi corn. Everything from puddings to soups. This is our blood in a lot of ways. This is who we are. When I was at Cornell University, when I talked about my corn, they said that I needed 33 inches of annual rainfall a year. Okay, their planting depths were an inch. Our planting depths, because the way our corn is, because that's where the moisture's at, can go anywhere from 2 feet all the way up. Over time, they've adapted. They have what they call a growing region called an epicotyle. It's the initial growing point comes out and it's elongated. It has an elongated epicotyle, so it comes up from that. Whereas in hybrid corn, it's only probably.
Well, we're doing science, RJ. It's pretty cool. Look at them grow.
Physics, yeah.
Yeah, physics. Look at it. It's pushing up and going down. Is it an equal and opposite reaction? I don't want to encourage or discourage anybody's active imagination.
Growing region, ours 2 feet, it can probably go longer. I would imagine if I put it down 4 feet, it would still come up.
Do it.
Well, yeah, the root system is the foundation of the plant, but it doesn't really require to go
Farming means that
deeper than what the moisture, for
you don't believe in.
Yeah,
irrigation.
and it's
to
hard,
support
That's why
to support the plant, and that.
You know what's interesting, RJ? You see his valley here? I'm in Alamosa. If you remember, what was my second choice of where I was going to end up? Where the Lord was calling me to say, here's Paco's home base, the San Juan Mountains, but this valley.
Well, I thought, Montrose is where you were.
Right. But okay, maybe I could jog your memory. It's not like cheating. It was a place about 70, 80 miles north of Flagstaff, Arizona. A reservation there was there at that bend of that river. But the valley was too small because let's face it, although I haven't found a cave yet, I really haven't gone out and looked. I'm supposed to be able to find places to fight like 100,000 people. And I'm thinking, well, that place north of Flagstaff is too small. San Juan, Alamosa. I'm from Colorado. I'll go there. This video is from that reservation in Flagstaff. So just for context, that's
cool. Yeah,
what we're looking at here.
That's
where they're doing this fishing and stuff.
Why these varieties are so drought tolerant, because we don't irrigate.
My second choice. It's going to be a camp of the saints. I'm
beans. You
assuming.
can see some of the beans that are starting to pop up out here. These white lima beans.
I mean, but the valley I live in is 100 miles wide, 300 miles long. This is like 70.
5 lima bean seeds in there, so.
And then you throw in a dead fish? No, not this time.
Okay, Squanto.
Because they're like us, they survive like us. Limited amount of water, a lot of nurturing.
I mean, and burn everything. They're women. You know what their job was? Burn it.
As a partner.
Women are busy burning most of the time, it seemed like. Some women might have been more into burning than others. I'm better at it. Always wanting to get out there and burn.
People on this lane especially are really excited for the burning to happen because they did experience the dance fire back in 2013. I was at my sister's house when the fire started. We were cracking acorns in her living room. And as soon as I walked out on the porch, there was just like this wall of flames across the street. And it was like already.
So anyway, they told the women to stop burning it. And we know what happened in Pacific Palisades. I mean, since the 1980, they told all these guys, if we catch you burning like this, you're going to jail.
So the Kaduk people were fixed world people. Today, we're going to go down and we're going to fish in Ishipishi Falls. It's very romantic.
It does kind of look cool. I mean, when you eat a fresh salmon, it is so yummy. A little butter, a little salt is really.
And there's plenty of them.
So our tribal ceremonies fix the world, not just to fix.
I don't think the smoke. I don't think the smoke draws them back. I think that's silly. I only got about this far into the video, but these guys, They need Jesus Christ. They need to understand the mud flood was Armageddon. They got sold. What is going on here? We got time.
Pineapple monocrop production, wherein they totally decimated the land. And
Who cares?
organizations like
Pineapples?
Monsanto that got a foothold in Hawaii in the 1950s.
They finally got a foothold in Hawaii in the 1950s. Yeah, they told the Queen in 1958, Your Highness, for the sake of your people, sign this paper and let us take this over as a state because we will kill them. And she said, okay. And they kept her under house arrest. Yay, Hawaii.
Indigenous practices disregarded by the Americans from 1898 to the present day.
You still need the Lord Jesus Christ. I hope they hear his voice, RJ. I really do. What's this one? Oh, these guys had no spirit. Yeah, I was one of these guys standing on these roof pretending to act like I should give 2 cents worth of credence to their myths, RJ. And they were going like, Noah, what's with your friend? Why is he so angry? This doesn't work.
Well, yeah, that's tradition, culture. Yeah.
Yeah, they're done for the year. We had our annual rain dance. Some tourists came. Blah blah blah. Let's go back and eat some Twinkies. That's what I told them last time. That's what I'm going to tell them this time. I got to go back and check my pictures because there's. Am I showing them all?
Yeah, and then with uh, the manipulation of the food and how there's a large number in the population that require daily jabs of insulin
Yeah.
in order to
Oh my goodness.
survive.
Yeah. I think people our age average about 10 pills that the doctors have prescribed. I can't even imagine having to remember to take pills. I got some things here. I did have some. Thank you, Lord, for letting me remember them, and we'll read them now. It says patients have been diagnosed with, in quotes, chemical imbalances, despite the fact that no test exists to support such a claim, and there is no real conception of what a correct balance would even look like. But still, they take the Prozac and the things like that. I'm not giving medical advice. Everybody go to your doctor. I did the disclaimer. I'm the guy that thinks he's a prophet. Okay? I pretty much get a free rein on that one. Dopamine and serotonin hypotheses of schizophrenia, and depression are wrong. This is what this guy said. 1 step back, 2 steps forward in his pipe dream. Here's another quote. Our best-selling psychopharmacology textbook consists of pure speculations presented as pretty pictures, which we mistake for science. We have a huge amount of neurobiology research now to conclude that neurotransmitter theories of psychopharmacology basically are false. I didn't say that. Somebody else said it. But get an idea on the money. This is converted to real dollars. And think about the United States 5 years ago gave away $1 trillion twice. In 1967, 1 in 3 American adults filled a prescription for a psychoactive medication with total sales of Valium reaching $692 million. They went running for the shelter of their mother's little helper. Outside the door, she took 4 more.
Yeah, this is what 2 years prior to the moon landing.
Everybody was nervous then, RJ. At least 1 in 3, and they sold lot.
And
You know,
those are statistics.
rounded up for modern
represent-
money. That's a lot of people doing drugs and a lot of people taking medicines that killed their babies and deformed them. All I got to read these things here. As gold flowed from London to San Francisco to settle 5 insurance claims, this is after their mud flood 1909 San Fran, fire insurance claims following the earthquake, a liquidity, whatever that is, crisis began. The huge outflow of wealth tightened monetary conditions in England to such an extent that the Bank of England was forced to double its discount rate in an attempt to attract foreign gold. What are they talking about? What in the world are they talking about?
Tariffs? Huh?
Gold, the insurance company said, well, we weren't expecting everybody to get flooded at the same time, or the fire departments blow up the buildings, burn them down, and now we're responsible. But remember, that's all fake. That's all bullshit. Everybody, you can't go like, their history says this, and then maybe their buildings are. It's all fake lie. The people lived in these cities and cleaned them out and act like they built them. We're living in Bible times. Everybody has always been living in Bible times. So I'm shrugging my shoulders and animating like anybody can see me. Well, that's a picture. I just clicked on it. Oh man, I did read that article last night after I shut that thing down. It was only 23 pages. The last thing it said, just crazy, that the provisions of this act are not intended to preclude the accomplishment of international bimetallism whenever conditions shall make it expedient and practical to secure the same by concurrent actions of the leading commercial nations of the world. I guess they mean whoever they will be at that time once they started this thing. I got this pulled up. I'm pretty
at a ratio which shall
ensure permanence. Yeah, between gold and silver. So when the United Nations finally figures this out, RJ, this law is on the books from the 1900s that are going to go like, oh, well, that's why we did it. Now it's ready. Let's go. Something like that. Well, earlier in this same thing, it said that because this was a time written in crisis, if the Secretary of Treasury is unable to restore and maintain the gold coin in the reserve fund by the foregoing methods, and the amount of such gold coin and bullion in said fund shall at any time fall below $100 billion. It's $100 million, but it's like Austin Powers. We're using, that's their money then. Then it shall be his duty to restore the same to the maximum sum of 150 million in gold by borrowing money on the credit of the United States. So I think they said at the time, we're going to pretend we have 100 million. They had like 70, but then they go on, for the debts. And the advocates of the gold standard did not foresee in 1896 the expansion of our monetary circulation through the increase of gold stock, which has since taken place. And the reform of the national bank system was the favorite theme for the theorist, because all of this was coming up. That's right in the middle of it, too. There had to be people in the background planning. This is like 1901 to 1907. They knew they were planning the creature from Jekyll Island. So a minimum gold reserve of 100 million has been stipulated. It is clear that the general fund of the Treasury must be denuded of gold before this minimum is reached. We have then in law the same minimum reserve as formerly in theory. On the other hand, under the old practice, the gold holdings might sink to the point without any accumulation of notes. And in fact, there were times in 1896 when the aggregate treasury balance of all kinds of money, so including the gold and all their other kinds of money, was less than 100 million. But under the new law, there must be an accumulation of 50 million in notes in the treasury before the gold reserve reaches the point where bond issues for its replenishment become necessary. Honestly, they were wearing me out with this crap. RJ, look at that. Did you see this story?
I'm not familiar. I don't recognize. I recognize the girl way over to the left.
Yeah, that's Clayton's wife, Natalie.
Yeah.
They're famous. They're super famous. But and I got to find this video and show then, because if you hadn't heard of this, maybe other people need to find out about this. And then you can go like, hey, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like those pictures?
Interesting, yeah. And I'm guessing they're somewhat current. I didn't catch the dates.
Yeah, they were all last night after I finished that. I did that, and then I read that article, and then the Lord was all about money last night. But then when I woke up, probably like 5:30 your time, I started seemed like
I shared that email that I opened up this morning before I spoke to you. It was sent last night, kind of touching on money, tariffs, whatever. On a personal
I am listening, but I kind of was looking for that video where Clayton wasn't in it, only Natalie was.
So
But I've got to find it. It'll take just another second. So I know you hate to be going like, stall for me, because I'm
just saying, everybody has their personal life, and like I say, that was a significant as far as reality on the other end of my transaction, without just flat out saying exactly what I'm talking about.
Can somebody help me find that? It is the one that the people that I really want to show them right now, that one about how the people from NATO and everything else are killing us. They let 4 people die in a truck that freaking, and now it's like, what the hell? I am on their page. Am I sharing? You see how I'm looking for it? It's like, where's the video? It was last night. It was last night she put out that video.
No, sometimes you have to go to live. You're on videos. And was it a
live? I thought I looked on the live.
Okay,
that seemed like that'd be the first place I looked. And there was one 16 hours ago.
And that's the most
Trump's Liberation Day, and that's not about the people that were stuck in the mud, and the United States acted like they didn't know they were dead for 4 days, and it was last night.
Okay.
Not 3 weeks ago, not 8 days ago.
No, maybe it was removed. It's one of them that was current then, and since then has been removed. I don't.
Right.
Can't say.
Well, here's the deal. On the 25th of March, a Crane tank went missing, and 4 soldiers were feared dead. From the very beginning, our NATO friend found the tank, got it out of the water that day. They pretended they were still looking, and it was like that flight MH370. We don't know if they're dead yet. And then they declared them dead. And Lithuania's going like, we found them in the tank.
Yeah, war games can get a little dangerous sometimes. Yeah, so much for good intentions. You found it?
Were they drowned or abducted? It began early Tuesday, March 25th. The soldiers, identities withheld, were recovering another US Army vehicle during a NATO drill. Then, silence. By Wednesday, their Hercules was found, swallowed by the swamp's murky depths.
I guess we're finding out. No, they found out. They knew what was happening all along.
Not just water, and it's not just mired in mud. It's a mixture of both.
So, like the President Trump said, well, they just drove too close to the shoreline, and this heavy trunk, it just made them slip right in.
Primarily environmental. So just the conditions when we got out here on site were not like anything that we've ever had to
No bottom to, like quicksand, you know.
Theories swirl. This isn't just any swamp, it's on NATO's front line, a stone's throw from Belarus, Russia's loyal ally. With over 1,000 US troops rotating through Lithuania, Moscow has been watching.
And then all of a sudden, the tank just sunk down. It's gone. And they acted like we don't know for 4 days. And then it came out. No, they're all dead. They're dead.
Right. Well, you know, unless you're in a submarine, even then you got limited air supply, you know. Usually it's the first thing.
Last week sunk in a peat
But why cover it up for 4 days and act like you don't know?
The Defense Ministry said on Monday that US investigators and Lithuanian military police were still at work at the site in a military training area.
Interesting equipment
of the missing soldiers.
they have there.
First Brigade.
Same thing they have in the U.S. Probably U.S. paid for it to be built in South Korea.
Yeah,
Hyundai is a good product. Hyundai is a good product. It's like Volvo now.
Yeah, they have the abilities.
So we don't get to see that. Hey, RJ, am I sharing the screen?
Yeah, 4 working principles.
Yeah, pragmatism, relativism, positivism, and personalism. They basically are coming down to something that the United States is on board with and has been on board with for not really that long. But we figured it out now that they don't believe in God anymore. They're all Globe, Darwin, and whatever.
Yeah.
It's situational ethics. Situational ethics, not relationship ethics. It's whatever the situation you're in at this time. We've got a protocol for it.
Crisis management. Crisis management.
Heidegger, we've all heard of these guys. You'd think that these famous philosophers that they try to shove down our throat, that they weren't still alive when I started studying them in the late 60s and going like, you're kidding me. Why are all these people French? They're stupid, you know, but it's still the same thing. You know, they're theologians. They're not that. It's not all this new stuff who would come up with Christians teaching situational ethics as a form of consequentialism.
Yeah, but that's part of being compartmentalized also, where you can't no one gets to look at the big picture. You have to look from that whatever vantage point you're at. The crisis management.
So I don't wear lederhosen I wear a big red thing and yodel on a mountain. Yeah, okay. Well, that's a full-time job studying how to yodel. And so situational.
Not everyone's, does it well. You can't be good at everything, but as long as you're good at something, and then hone that gift or whatever. Yeah.
What do you do if how do you really, if you meet somebody who goes like, yeah, I was just crowned the world's greatest tuba player. I mean, do you do a backflip and go, are you kidding me? Can I have your autograph? You are the best tuba player in the world. But I mean, would you want to go to an orchestra without a tuba player? I wouldn't. That'd be like going to hear a rock concert.
Anyone, you want them all and the best.
Some guy named Fletcher proposed that in forming an ethical system based in love, he was best expressing the notion of love thy neighbor, which Jesus Christ taught in the Gospels. Through situational ethics, I told you earlier, somebody told me they think that that's the problem. We have situational ships instead of relationships nowadays. Fletcher go ahead.
The ethics here, I think that's do unto others as or before.
Yeah, that's supposed to be funny when people say that now. Yeah, I know that.
Or as you would have them do unto you. There's a couple ways that can be.
Yeah. And then they usually wipe the beer off their chin and tell you that those who've got the gold make the rules. Like, maybe they got a Cougarand in their sock in their drawer or something. Then when the shit hits the fan, they're going to take it down to the market and say, I need a loaf of bread, a jug of milk, and change for my Cougarand. And Snidely Whiplash is going to go, how about I kill you right now and just take your Cougarand?
Yeah.
Situational ethics. The currency law.
And that the people that have inherited this ownership layer at the very top, they did not design this. They did not put it in motion. They have allowed the juggernaut to continue. There has been no pruning in the garden. There's been no oversight. It's literally never been looked at, never been checked. It is basically run out of control unconsciously. So
is this white privilege here? What are you doing?
All the way to the top of the
No, this is like our money system of this guy. He thought what is happening was going to happen 4 years ago. He wasn't listening to me. He was listening to his brain, not knowing that they can stretch this out as long as they want. I still have to have gangrene. I still have to figure out where I'm going to, whether it's going to be Flagstaff or Alamosa. And then Trump's going to bring it down. But here's how.
Yeah,
he was right.
Keep skipping the rope as they turn around, because if you don't, you're going to trip and fall. So as long as you keep skipping the rope.
That's right. And we don't have time, but I wish they could hear you talk about how they wait for you to drop your guard. And then what's that? The jabberoo? They give you they know. They got a time for you, people. You're going to drop your jab and then pow. And you were like, how do you know?
Another way I think about this is
it hurts
us. We have to try to imagine who we're dealing
with. Yeah.
So
Smarts.
I'm getting into conjecture about this. I have known people pretty high in the system. I have this idea that people are intimidating if you have not met them. But once
now this is where I have to disagree with this fella. He's trying to think all these rich people are just like everybody else when you meet them. You can trust me. Here's how they're going to do it. But it's not spiritual. They're just a little bit confused. They were raised wrong. But they're not evil people. They don't have Anunnaki. They're not lizard people. They're just like us. No, they're not. And I don't believe in lizard people either. So take care here. Be ready to bail me out.
once you've met
but
them,
hopefully they are different than what we are, because I don't want to be like them,
No shit. I would not date this girl if she came up to me like that. Do you want to dance? I'd be like, what am I doing here?
that they are just people. And I think we have to understand these are just people. They are not lizards eating babies like potato chips.
So that's talking to a different market. He's not looking for us. He's trying to sell something, but this law that he's talking about is super important.
Not helpful to think of it that way. So they are actually not particularly
It's a good look.
people. So there is a head of the snake, but it can't do anything alone. It is reliant on the muscle beneath the head of the snake
And he just
to do everything.
takes
for it.
forever.
And these are just people. They are not lizards eating babies like potato chips. Intelligence organizations are much like that. As I said, the garden has not been pruned. There's been no oversight here. So they're all running within their missions, essentially out of control. Those people also need to be aware of where this is going. Now, there are people.
Well, it costs a lot of money to dress these people up and attack. Will you get to the point? This was a painful watch, RJ.
Support, the hidden hand, as I call it, can be withdrawn.
Stacking the coinage.
But we're getting late in this process, given what's already happening with interest rates. The other indication of timing is the bank resolution, the documents of the Bank Resolution Authority in Europe. They're planning.
The main takeaway, RJ, is going to be that these guys' leftover laws that these banks that are too big to fail, they get, if the insurance money's run out again like it did in the early 1900s, they have a whole priority thing set to where you may think your house and your car are paid off. They are not. They're being held in escrow because they know that there's only so much money in the world. And if and when it ever crashes, 5 banks have to pay off their debts first, and then whatever's left, and there'll be nothing left. Your house, you might have it, you'll live in it, but technically, when somebody comes with paper says you don't own it, you don't own it. Let's see if we can find that where he finally gets down to it, and it's like, because he's selling something. He's selling this movie. This is his thing. He's exposing it. He's exposing a 2-minute thing in an hour and 11 minutes.
Which I've never seen before with anything. So they're very, very serious about this. And these exercises are about assuring the cross-border transfer of the collateral when the banks are put into wind down.
Cross-border lending is what people need to Google and find out about who are the people that are exempt.
Noticed in the news that there have been some failures of banks in the last year, and that is due to this increase, this backup in interest rates. And the idea that this is a bank-specific problem is not the case. These are the canaries in the coal mine.
Exactly. So, Ed, he'll stretch this out for a few more minutes.
Not going to go well for anyone. Then people are left with this idea that, well, everything will just collapse. And I don't believe that at all. There is a real world with real economic activity that goes on despite this system that extracts resources from people and places enormous stress on them, that funds psychological operations that are, of course, public facing. They're used against the population so that the resources of the public are extracted, tremendous burdens are placed on.
So how did they get there on this?
It's a system that subjugates people. And if that simply for that is operational.
solvent wind down of derivatives, they're not going to lose their money.
As of the end of last year. Now, in this year's planning cycle document, they are saying that they are on track to have completed all their work by the end of this year, 2023. So these are indications. To give you another idea of the seriousness of this, they've been running these trilateral exercises with Britain and the EU and the US for 6 of the 7 past years. I think they may have missed a year during COVID, but in these exercises, from the US side, the participants are the US Treasury Secretary, the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
You think you own your house and your car, they can come take it if they don't have enough insurance money to pay off the top 5 international commingled banks. They have the priority.
Reserve, the chairman of the FDIC, the heads of all these entities in this exercise, which I've never seen before.
Earlier, he does get into the fact that it shouldn't be mysterious of how is the Federal Reserve funded? Where does their money come from? We're not allowed to ask.
With anything. So they're very, very serious about this. And these exercises are about assuring the cross-border transfer of the collateral when the banks are put into wind down. So you've noticed in the news that there have been some failures of banks in the
I
last
remember
year,
that.
and that is due to this increase.
This is one of the parts when, Trump wasn't in jail, he wasn't in the news, Silicon Valley was shutting down, San Francisco was losing people, the homeless were really a big part. Who's going to do this?
This backup in interest rates, and the idea that this is a bank specific problem is not the case. These are the canaries in the coal mine. This is.
You remember when, RJ, the interest rates, they somehow miraculously lowered them because of COVID and everything to 0. And they said he goes to a lot of detail about how that is, basically making money for the banks and setting the people up. There was no coming back after 2008. That was the simple thing that
I
everything.
believe, was it in Europe they went negative where you had to.
Yeah, they would pay. Yeah, you'd pay them to let you put money in the bank.
Yeah,
and they could just all of a sudden say,
inch. Yeah,
they could take money out of your checking account.
Creative banking, yeah.
And that's the only way we've survived to this day.
Itself, which houses all the securities in the U.S. securities complex and is the central clearing party for most derivatives, they have discussion of how they will start over again when the central clearing party collapses, and explicitly that they will not put more capital behind it, but they have pre-funded the startup of a new central clearing party when one of the existing ones fails. So it's essentially planned, and the entire capital base of depository trusts, so essentially the entire US securities complex, is housed there and all derivatives. The entire capital is $3.5 billion. Individual banks have derivative positions the size of the global GDP. So something will happen to trigger this collapse, implosion. I would say the cake is already baked at this time. It's been made to happen because to take interest rates after having kept them at 0 for 15 years, which was insane.
There's this very little math and it's very easy to understand.
Begin with, and did not
it ought to be
happen, was made to happen, and then in essentially a year to take that back to over 5%. And if you're noticing, they're not stopping, the rates are continuing up. I'll go through what that means for the global financial system. When interest rates were at 5%, if a bond paid $5, to simplify this, let's say it's a perpetuity, which means you don't have to take into account a maturity date. So if it pays $5, it's worth $100. You would pay $100 for that because interest rates are 5%. Now, if interest rates are driven down by the central bank to 1% and the bond still pays $5, now 5 is 1% of $500. So the value of the bond goes up fivefold by dropping interest rates like that. And it was even further because they took it to zero. So this is the source of the bubble, the financial bubble that we've experienced, the everything bubble, as some people call it. And the entire financial system.
Well, in retrospect, as a comparison, when I purchased where I'm at in '86 during that reset crash, I was able to get financed in it, but this building, this drafty old barn that I live in, 10%. And
Wow.
Ours lot was double, for industry or whatever, 20%, if you recall what was happening at that time. And granted, my loan was for less than 10 years because I was paying it, but it was a 10% loan for the duration, and I paid off what I had purchased in that decade 10%.
Yeah. I had a VA qualification. I got my loan in to buy a house. I think it was 8.5%. I got like a 1% break. And then as I paid it off slowly over the 17 years it took me, I had it down to 3.5% interest because I renegotiated it. I refinanced 3 different times as it kept going down.
Yeah, there's incentive, to do that. I chose, because for one thing, this isn't a residential home. This is a commercial building where I'm at. But them are all decisions.
It's a post office, everybody. RJ lives in an old post office, a barn, a grocery store, a hardware store.
And we did
mud flood building.
We had the post office in here for about a decade, and then I evicted them,
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, and then we went on the route. Yeah, now we're serviced by a route, but
so what are these guys going to do with all their money, RJ? I mean,
but yeah, I'm just saying it might sound somewhat unique, and it probably wasn't, during that time because that's how things were. Now after 40, almost 50 years, 45 or whatever, it's that snowball is getting bigger. It's more
right.
It was unsustainable then, but they were doing creative stuff, and it's still unsustainable. It's just that much worse.
Yeah, everybody, the snowball thing. It's like life. It starts out, that you're a little snowball and you're rolling down a hill. You couldn't wait for Christmas. It took forever. Well, halfway down that hill, when that snowball is getting bigger, those years fly by. They fly by. And when you're my age, 20 years just
momentum. Yeah.
All right. I looked for some more scripture, but I think I wanted to end with this one again here today. There's Hagar, there's Sarah, there's promises. RJ, I'm gonna read this one, and then I want you to comment on this here. Tell me, you who desire to be under the law, do you not listen to the law? For it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by a slave woman and one by a free woman. But the son of the slave, Esau, was born according to the flesh, while the son of the free woman was born through promise. Now, here's an interpreted allegory. These are to be interpreted allegorically. These women are two covenants. One, Mount Sinai, children for slavery. That is not Sarah. That's Hagar. So it's Ishmael. I was wrong about that. Now, Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. She corresponds to the present Jerusalem, as if there's only been that one, as far as I know. So that just means, I don't know. She is in slavery for her children, that present Jerusalem, but Jerusalem above is free. Okay, now I get it. And she is our mother, for it is written, rejoice, O barren one. Now people want to rejoice to be barren, who does not bear. Break forth and cry aloud, you who are not in labor, for the children of the desolate one will be more than those of the one who has a husband. Anything on that, RJ? Because I know that, we know that Isaac was the children of the promise. It was a miracle. It was that one, and you'll be the seed. The gospel was preached to Abraham, and it took a long time. These things take time, and I guess I don't want to end on too much of a vagueness, but earlier we heard them.
Well, yeah, you can read, I guess, whatever you want to read into it. We're at a time where between the harvesting of babies in the womb and just the lack of the inability to seriously take a vow, those children that are permitted to be born more often than not seem to be born out of wedlock. No decision on the child that's being born. It's at least on the one or maybe both parents of the child. Hard to say, but with the whole the pyramid scam of how here in America,
Which one?
Well, the scam of where those that are in the actively in the slave labor force having a portion of their earnings collected for the senior population. Everybody goes through and is forced to play this game.
Right. I mean,
it's unsustainable. It's because of, like I say, there's a couple.
We're in a situation. We're in a situation right now. From the weather to the economy.
Well, and what you just read, that was a snapshot in time, because after Sarah passed, there were more children he had and he lived another 50 years.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of those things.
It's a snapshot deal, and this represents that. But the story wasn't over. Not for him and his offspring that he had with another wife.
Zethura or something like that. I think her name starts with a Z. But it was another one of those things. Was Abraham the most studly man around, or was she just a righteous woman like Ruth, who married Boaz, who, basically said, this is a
kinsman
legal
redeemer,
thing, you know?
and that represents something else. The kinsman redeemer, take off your shoe and get slapped with it or whatever.
And that was what they said. Even the Bible kind of says, and at the time, that's what they did. It wasn't
was
like they were,
normal.
yeah. But even the writers were going like, we don't do that now, but that's what they did. You will be known as, you'll be known as he who got slapped with a shoe. And it's like, when you hear that, boy, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy.
Probably not.
Well, we got it. We hit an hour mark. There's so much more we could talk about. There's danger in the economy. There's danger in the weather. And then you do get hit by a tornado, or you do break your toe and you have to go to something, But in the meantime, as Big Doug used to say, this is a day that the Lord has made. We have a command to rejoice and be glad in it. We know that we should tell people. We shouldn't be shy. It's flat earth nation. The golden age has passed. Jesus said it's coming back for that generation. They're either going to listen or they won't. And you'll be surprised. A lot of times these old people with money, they don't want to hear it at all. Go ahead, RJ, wrap it up. What do you think?
Yeah, as far as sucking the air out of your sails, that's not the purpose here, but stay safe and informed. And yeah, there'll be another day.
Remembering flat earth, golden age past, mud flood, Armageddon. They added 1,000 years because Satan was in the pit for 1,000 years to match the 1,000-year reign of Christ. That he reigned with the rod of iron. The wheat and the tares were being raised together, and then Satan is loosed. That means there was the reaping. We had the whole orphan train thing, and now we're figuring out the money of how did we get here now with the mafias in charge, and they claim it was because they sold bootleg whiskey. We're not buying it. We're not buying it at all.
Military-industrial complex.
Yeah, we're not buying it at all. We're throwing it on those guys who wanted to make the money selling the machine guns. That's not us. We're all about beating our swords into plowshares unless you want to use it for hunting and fishing. Well, anyway, that's what my friends and me are going to tell you. My friends and I am going to tell you. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakame. Adios.